So I would say that the most obvious one that sticks out to me about my personal life before knowing God's love for me was when I was a kid. Growing up, I was raised in a nominally Catholic family, attended CCD before it was called PSR. And I think like many American Catholics, um, we said that we were Catholic, but I didn't have any relationship with God and don't know how much I really prayed or how consistent we were about going to Mass. And as I got older and got into my teenage years, I think because of that, I struggled with my identity, and that led to a lot of frustration because when you let the world define who you are, then you're never going to measure up, and struggled with a lot of emotional pain because of that. I wouldn't say that I ever suffered from like a diagnosable depression, but a lot of sadness and even thoughts of suicide at times. And I was very blessed to come to know God through the Life Teen program that was at my parish when I was in high school, and totally changed my life. I think there was actually like a moment that I can recall. I went down to a summer youth retreat at Franciscan University of Steubenville at the encouragement of one of my friend's moms. And I went as a teenage boy because there were teenage girls there. And I was enthusiastic about that and not really about anything faith related at all. And that weekend, I think, was the first time that I experienced what I think Pope Francis calls like an encounter with God. There was a Eucharistic adoration on Saturday evening, I think like most formulas for retreats. And it was the first time that I was like, oh man, like God is actually real. God is actually a person, and he loves me and wants to have a relationship with me. And, I still screwed around that weekend and did stupid teenage stuff, not just that weekend, but throughout high school and even college. But once I had a taste of that, it was like going to a fancy restaurant. Nothing satisfies like that experience. And so I think it set me on a course of always wanting more of that and knowing that that's what I was truly seeking in my heart. And, obviously a transformation isn't just a one-time thing. It's a process that takes years. And so I didn't come out of that weekend like fully formed, like now I've got Jesus armor on and like my life is good from here on out, like the best behaved kid at Life Teen and stuff like that. That's never been my personality, but I'm not sure that it ever will, but God's working on that. But like I said, it set me on this course of just like thirsting for more of that. And my relationship with God through the Life Teen program grew because of that thirst. It grew in college in the program that we had at the Newman Center. It grew in my relationship with my now wife, who I was started dating at the end of high school. And I think that I have consistent experiences in my life where I taste that again. And I like to think of them as like a little bit of a foretaste of what heaven really feels like. And, you can't get enough of those experiences. They remind you like why going to Mass is important, why, chasing this idea of who Christ has us intended to be is worth it. So I think that title is growing more and more beautiful to me the longer that I'm a father. So I've got 3 boys, Isaiah, who's 5, Matthias, who's 3, and Xavier, who's 1. And my oldest, Isaiah, is playing t-ball this year. In spite of everything that's going on, somehow our community is still pulling it off. And we started practicing coach pitch recently. And he struggled with it. He's the youngest kid on the team. And the first time that he was at bat, you get 5 swings before they bring the tee in. And on the last one before we brought the tee in, I was coaching home, and so I was helping him with it. And he said, I'm never going to be ready. And that like broke my heart a little bit for a second when he said it, but it really made me realize like how God views us, right? So me prior to my relationship with God was like that, like I'm never gonna be good enough. And I look at that and I say, I mean, is Isaiah gonna be a professional baseball player? Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. Um, but he's always gonna be good enough for me. When I look at him, there's a tenderness in my heart that anyone who's a parent can really relate to, and anyone who has a parent who they're close with has seen the look in a parent's eye when they're looking down on you with love, especially in a moment where you're being hard on yourself. And so now as a father, I get to live that toward my son, and sometimes I have to remind myself that like the way that I feel in that moment is the same way that God feels for me, except more, because I'm not infinite and he is. So I think the best way that I feel it is through two things: experiences on retreats. I think a lot of people appreciate that. When you have a time to escape, wind down from life, and allow God's love and time with Him to kind of wash over you. But that's not something that can sustain you all the time. But definitely through other people, my wife in particular. The way that I feel like I look at my son when he's having difficulty or he's frustrated about something. Um, my wife does a really good job of emulating that type of love for me, and it's so greatly appreciated. I mean, she is just an incredibly humble and loving person, and it's easy to forget that. When you live with somebody long enough, you're gonna cause friction and rub on each other and get a little annoyed with one another, but she does that, and those times remind me that like there's a reason that God uses our spouses to help lead us to heaven. She's really good at that. I think that is kind of tough for me because I guess I tend to be a pretty blunt and like straightforward person, and that's one thing that I really appreciated in college when I started to read a lot of C.S. Lewis. And I think it was in Mere Christianity. One of his responses to that sort of thing was like, "You're not. Like, you're not worthy of God's love, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to be, because He looks on you and says that your weakness, your failures, your sins, your shortcomings, the areas where you struggle, or the times like I have a tendency to wrap my identity in how good of a husband or father I feel like I am compared to other people, or how good I am at my job. Um, God looks on those things and like that doesn't matter. It's like when you create a masterpiece and there are flaws in that masterpiece. The longer you look at it, the more you realize the beauty in it, and the less you notice those little imperfections. And I think we got to remember that God doesn't make masterpieces that are like one perfect little piece of artwork. He's making things that are like a symphony, and when those things play together, they do what they're supposed to do.